All right, guys, what's going on? We are on part 5 of this Neil Peart 2015 interview. So far, we're talking about all kinds of things: traveling, books, music, religion, driving, traveling, all kinds of things. Yeah, so this is a donation request video. This is for Seth. If you're new here, please subscribe, check out my videos, all kinds of videos, reaction videos, bass videos, music videos, check it out. If you like the channel, you want to support the channel, you can hit super thanks underneath this video. You can hit me direct in the description. I got PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, Amazon wishlist, mailing address, and I do donation request videos just like this one. So if there's something you want me to listen to watch, to talk about, a question, anything, hit me direct, PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, and in the notes section, leave a description, leave a link. Let me know what you want the video to be on, and I'll make the video. Also, you can email me at jpanreadsemail@gmail.com. That's also in the description. All right, guys, part 5. Let's do this. Bam.
In your book, Far and Near, there was a passage that I found very interesting. When you talked about your trip through Selma, Alabama, and the reason it's touched me is that I had the privilege of meeting Rosa Parks. And I'll never forget that. It was at the President Clinton's first inauguration. And I had, still had long hair and,
Damn, this guy went to Clinton's
scruffy.
inauguration.
But I put on, a nice suit and got this interview with Ms. Parks and went to this hotel and walked in, and she had some sort of bodyguard there who was pretty rough looking. He looked like he meant business, and checked me and the guy that was with me out, which I was glad that he did. And then we were ushered into this room, and she was sitting there with 5 other grandmotherly-looking ladies in their Sunday best.
Yeah.
And they were, talking, and I really felt like I was interrupting them, but I had to do it. So I was able to say to her, because I never got to say it to Dr. King, thank you for not only, of course, your work, civil rights movement to free African American people, but thank you for freeing me from the burden of bigotry. That was a huge gift that Dr. King and you gave me as a white person.
Yeah.
Not to have to carry that around for my life.
And we talked a bit before about having grown up through those times. And again, I'm eternally grateful to have grown up in the 1950s and the 1960s. But when we witnessed those things firsthand on our televisions and seeing fire hoses trained on people and little girls getting shouted, swear words at when they're trying to walk to school for the first time. And we saw those things happening around us and puzzled over them, as kids, going, why is this going on? And to see it change increment by increment. So that the example you mentioned about my civil rights tour was just looking at the map one day where I had to go the next day and think, okay, how can I make this ride interesting? And I remembered those times and I thought, okay, Selma, it rings large in my memory, and the march to Montgomery. So I said, okay, we're going to go to all those places. We're going to go through Montgomery and go through Selma and the bridge where he turned it around and kept it peaceful. And people don't realize perhaps why Dr. Martin Luther King is so celebrated, because he saved so many lives by not being confrontational when it was the wrong time. And he recognized at that moment, okay, look, this is all going against us. Let's turn around today, people, and try again later. And they did, and made it happen, and made that march happen, and got to the steps of the Capitol in Montgomery. And those times, and of course I'm riding past cotton fields and considering, all that was and all that is, and of course how much still remains to be done in the burden of American history. But to go through those places cognizantly of the past and being sensitive to what's around you, I think it's an observation you once made about watching the documentary where the 3 of us are having a well-refreshed dinner, and you commented that I was the greatest audience to Alex. And I took that to heart. Well, I am an audience kind of person, and one reason that the song Limelight caught me in a bind because I don't want to be the focus of attention. I want to be the watcher. And even on stage, I feel like the audience. I'm watching those people, what they respond to and how they're behaving and dancing, what's on their T-shirts. And, that's all to me. And when I'm on my motorcycle, the world is coming at me as a pageant, and I'm watching it as closely as I can, using that writer's exercise. How can I put this in words? Helps me make sense of it for myself. So, yes, going through history. And another time, a day off, I looked at Thomas Jefferson's home in Monticello in Virginia and thought, yeah, I want to go there, because it's on the way. And just any points of interest like that, or reliving history, and if I can write about it in that sense for people who weren't around then, and remind them, of this was a time, or the nuclear age, when I'm traveling around the West and Los Alamos, New Mexico, and all that, the terrible shadow of nuclear devastation that we grew up on, and my father building a pathetic fallout shelter in the basement of our split-level house, with sleeping bags and water and a transistor radio. This was my childhood, and the when people talk about the Cuban crisis and the Bay of Pigs and all that, I lived it. I was only 10 years old, so when the neighbor dads are standing around talking about how the Russians are sure to bomb Niagara Falls, which is 20 miles from our house, can you imagine what a 10-year-old kid thinks hearing those kind of things? So, of course, it impressed upon me hugely forever that that's the world I lived in, that it was that fragile. And then seeing the Vietnam protests on television, Kent State, all the civil rights struggles of those times, the assassinations of both Kennedys, of course, and Dr. King, those were things that happened that I was standing on the schoolyard steps and was told about, that changed the world forever and certainly changed me.
And a song from that era in particular got to you when you were just 13.
Yeah, well, of course, the Selma, Alabama comes up in this song called Eve of Destruction that was a big hit in those days by Barry McGuire, I think, written by P.F. Sloan. And one of the all-time great drummers, too, Hal Blaine, playing drums on it. So a lot of stories, when I look into the history of things like that, or the Monterey Pop Festival, or, what really happened behind the scenes at Woodstock when I've been writing about them and needed to get my facts straight, or when I wrote, speaking of the nuclear age, writing the Manhattan Project and addressing the birth of the atomic bomb, well, I needed to get my facts straight. Right. And in those days, there was no Wikipedia. So I had the number of books I had to read to write those 200 words that a song holds, just to get my facts straight and to understand what these scientists were going through, being sequestered off in the desert to invent the ultimate weapon ever. These things are huge resonance, and as a human being, you think, okay, these were young people, young men and women who went there and lived through that time. So it comes alive for me, and then you try to make it alive for other people. So anytime I see a bit of American, it's not American history, is it? It's world history. It's human history. It sure is. Of course, if I can dwell on those a little bit along the way and remind people who maybe weren't around what a crazy old world we grew up in.
Amen. Amen. Well, I'm going to pass on the song for a minute because I'm looking at the clock here. So imagine that I played Eve of Destruction.
Eve of Destruction. But you can hear it in your heads if you're of a certain age.
There you go. Let's talk about songwriting for just a moment. Tell us how the band works out a new song. How you bring in, is it lyrics first, music first? How does that work?
Yeah, it's evolved over time to a sense, but really at this point, I just write a bunch of lyrics without investing too much in them and pass them over to Geddy and Alex, and they jam. It really is as simple and as organic as that. The two of them will just sit in front of a recording machine and start playing, and then Geddy, being the patient and meticulous one, will go through and pick out the high points of what they've done. Then he'll turn to my sheets of lyrics and find things that fit and say, okay, well, this 2 lines maybe out of a whole page, right? That's why I learned not to invest myself in it or present one piece of work. Here's a song I've been working on, for days. It's got to be just like it is. Right. I'm not that possessive yet about it. And if Geddy likes 2 lines of them they work in a song, then I'm happy already. I'm inspired already that something worked. And if he says, I need 4 more lines like this and maybe another bit like that, I run off to my desk
kind
like,
of works on a direction.
It's going to work. There's a moment in writing lyrics that I always find, not when I finish, but I've struggled with it for days and it doesn't seem like it's going to work and I'm ready to abandon songwriting forever. I should never have done this. I can't do it. And then something turns around and a light goes off and all I think is, it's going to work. And there might be another day's work there. And the same thing when a song, when Geddy fastens onto those few lines and it's going to work, then I'm already inspired. So I'm more than happy to go back and do the necessary craft work to make that happen. So, and then there's infinite refinement going back and forth. And Geddy, as a singer, of course, has to feel comfortable with the words, not necessarily in their meaning only, but in the way they deliver as music, right?
Sure.
That's a lesson I had to learn, that things that looked good on the page and sounded good spoken in my head weren't necessarily that great to sing. And I've learned more about that over time and still continue to learn. And when Geddy tells me that a line is great to sing, then I learn to model after those combinations of beats, right? Words are rhythm to me, and especially in lyrics, that's why I think I gravitated toward it, because I'd always loved words and reading, but it was a chance to rhythmically phrase those words, and that's the way they always drop into my head as rhythms.
Wow, that's fantastic, and thank God you have developed this collaborative effort with Geddy and Alex, that you can work in that way and raise the standard of the song rather than look at me, look what I did.
Or fighting it down till it's some consensus that doesn't have anything left of what you intended in it. Fortunately, there's never that sense of loss. It's always a sense of enrichment. And more so, even in our individual parts, I always find that once my drum parts have been through our collective ideas, and it's not a committee by any means, and it's not a democracy, right? I can't come up with a drum set and or a drum part and two of us like it and one doesn't, or a song that two of us like and one doesn't. That's never going to work over time, right? And one story I love to tell is the instrumentals are always the hardest for all of us to like them. And on Snakes and Arrows, I guess it was, the song called The Main Monkey Business, we worked on that song probably 5 times as long as we worked on any of the vocal musical songs, because all of us want so much out of that instrumental, and we want to be pleased with it melodically, dynamically, instrumentally, all of those elements. So it actually takes longer to arrive at that consensus. But when we do, we have something that we're comfortable with, not just then, but to play for the next 40 years. That's the remarkable thing that I was saying, that we never have to choose our songs based on what we can stand to play, because almost all of them come back and go, oh yeah, we are still the people that we were then, still respond to the excitement that made a drum part is always inspired by excitement, right? This is kind of drumming that's exciting for me to listen to, so it's the kind of drumming that's exciting for me to play, and you hope to communicate that the listeners, again, like I said from the outset, the simplest statement, we make the music we like, and hope others do, but there's a lot in that in terms of the excitement and the passion that I had as a 15-year-old kid hearing Keith Moon play, right? I want that excitement in my playing too, ideally.
Well, let me turn this around for a minute, since we discussed how your passion for, and you guys are such great songwriters, but then you did an album that appreciated other people's songwriting. Feedback.
Yeah, and that was going right back to our roots. Again, it touches on just what I just said, the music that got us excited about the whole idea of being in a band and writing songs and playing them every night. And those were the songs we went back to, again, that were part of all of us. Of course, there were ones that were more individual choices, but those were ones that mattered to all of us in those formative times. So it was absolutely, that was 10 years ago when we were a mere 30 years old as a band then, youngsters. But we wanted to commemorate that in a sense, and we did talk about that this time, but in a sense, having done that, there were still more songs, of course, that we would gladly interpret, which is what a cover record is, but it was hard to go back. It always is.
Well, if you don't mind, I'm going to play my favorite cover version from Feedback. And when I heard you guys were doing this, I thought, well, that's going to be interesting. And then I heard, they're going to cover some Buffalo Springfield tunes. And it stopped me in my tracks. I went, wait a minute, Rush is going to do Buffalo Springfield? Come on. Somebody's pulling my leg. And the way that you guys do Mr. Soul
Great.
just killed me. Let me just play that for a minute.
Go.
So this was a song that you obviously loved and...
Oh, absolutely. And For What It's Worth was the other Buffalo Springfield one that Alex just remembers loving that song so much as a kid. And that inspires you. How can you love music so much, that you want to be a part of it?
Mr. Soul from Rush. Rush, in a great version of the Buffalo Springfield song, Mr. Soul. My guest tonight is Neil Peart, and we've been talking about his book, the 40th Anniversary Rush Tour, which kicks off in May, I believe.
Yes.
May. And I want to ask you this question here, because we're running short on time. Let's talk about your priorities at this stage of your life.
Well, that's tough. But the same drives for travel and writing absolutely remain, and devoted to that absolutely. I always say now I would be happy instead of going on the road for a month and then coming home for a week and writing about it. Now I'd rather stay home for the month, go away for a few days, and come back and spend my time writing about it. So I'm still motivated by the same charm. Somehow that word came up. But yeah, charmed by the world in a kind of absolutely magical way. So still, even places that I'm familiar with, the deserts of California, the whole American Southwest, all of that calls to me absolutely still, and I want to find better ways to convey that to others. Right now, of course, the major ambition is developing the tour, and I'll start my rehearsals typically a month before the band rehearsals. Geddy always jokes that I'm the only musician he knows that rehearses to rehearse. But I like to come in on day one with all of the songs already. I've not only my drumming technique is performance ready, but all the songs and the nuances of transitions and tempos and all that are bogged already. So at least one of us is going to know what he's doing on day one.
For you, and by God, it's going to be you.
Yeah, cool, nice. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. That's cool. Yeah, I could definitely talk about that. Yeah, rehearsal is like, you need to show up to rehearsal prepared. Like that drives me insane if people don't do that. Okay, so like in California, like in all the bands I've been in all the different places, I've rehearsed the least in California. Right? When I lived in California for 11 years, I've rehearsed the least. That's not to say we never rehearsed in any of the bands I was in, because some of them we did. But mostly no. And there's a lot of reasons why for that. First of all, because you're working with the kind of people who, for the most part, not always, but for the most part, they're going to show up and know the material. They're going to show up prepared, because this is a professional situation. People are getting paid, and also like word gets around, right? Like, it's not like yeah, there's tons of people there. It's a big city, but it's all the same people. Yeah, there's people that come in and out. They stay, they go. Like they move away. They move. People move. New people, young people, not young people move in. And try and get in the circle and all that kind of thing. But for the most part, you show up prepared and ready to just do your job. Just kill it, all that kind of thing, right? So when you show up somewhere to a rehearsal, to a gig, and you're not prepared, and you're the one that's least prepared, or just people are waiting on you, that's not a good look. That sucks. I've worked with people who are freaking insane excellent, and if they pull any of that kind of crap, it's just like, who cares how good you are if you can't even show up on time, right? Or if like the band leader or whoever needs to worry about you, that you're gonna do what's expected, like, yeah, okay, you're incredible at your instrument, but like if you show up late or you don't know the material, what good is it? Who cares? I'd rather get somebody who will hustle and work at getting good at the material and be there, Anyways, that's definitely more how I am. I definitely am a prepare. I want to, you know, like do a good job and show up and not waste time. Like, let's get to this. One of the bands that I played in for years, we played together for years. It was like a house band kind of situation. And we never one time rehearsed, like never once. We learned new songs every single week. And they were not simple songs. They were like we were playing Steely Dan as a trio. We were playing Asia. We were playing Home at Last. We were playing Bodhisattva. We were playing Any Major Dude. We were playing Green Earrings. We were playing all kinds of Zeppelin. All kinds of 10 Years Gone. The Rain Song. We were playing Rolling Stones. All kinds of Rolling Stones. Can't You Hear Me Knocking? Jumpin' Jack Flash. Street Fighting Man. Midnight Rambler. I could go on and on and on and on and on and on and on with the kind of songs that we played. Never rehearsing. Show up. Know the material. All right, we're going to play Asia. Here we go. Bennett. Bennett, right? All right, we're doing it. We're doing it. We're playing it. We're doing it like the record, you know, like, know it. Just know it, you know, like, if you can't do that, you're not on the gig, you know, like real fast, you're not on the gig. There's a zillion fantastic, amazing players. Why? Like, it's just insane. Like, there's somebody just waiting for your job, right? So anyways, yeah, I love that. I'm all about that. Like, be prepared. It costs nothing. Be prepared. And it's worth everything, especially to people that hire you. It's worth everything. They will hire you again and again and again and again and again because they know that they can count on you. It makes a big deal. Anyways, that's my that'll be my spiel for today. Yeah, for this video. Yeah, he talked towards the beginning, he talked more about like the fragile world that he grew up in and all that kind of thing, which I thought was very interesting. I also think that it's kind of a constant, you know, like, because you think of things that have happened over the past couple of years, over the past 20, 30, 40 years. It's like there's always something, you know, to kind of show you, to point you to like, yeah, this can end, you know, with one, you know, one push of a button, all that kind of thing. Just one phone call, one whatever, you know, between people, you know, between countries, between just all of it. It's just like, yeah, it's wild. It's wild. It's totally wild. So, yeah, that was interesting. And sure, maybe the things aren't the same, but it's all connected. Anyways. Yeah, cool. All right, we got one more part left to this interview, and I'll catch you in that part later.